Today's story is about a woman who was underestimated by her husband's family, but she turned their laughter into shock, pulling off a move that saved an empire worth billions. Stay till the end for a story of brilliance, class, and justice. She arrived at the grand estate with a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation, her heart swelling at the thought of joining her husband's family. Everything about the house screamed wealth: marble floors that reflected the chandeliers above, priceless art lining the walls, and the faint scent of rare perfumes lingering in the air. Yet, beneath the polished elegance, she sensed an undercurrent of tension, a quiet scrutiny that followed her every step. Her husband greeted her warmly, but the smiles from his family were lukewarm, almost dismissive. At first, she tried to brush it off, believing that first impressions could be misleading. Yet it quickly became clear that she would have to navigate more than just a new household. She would have to navigate prejudice hidden behind polite gestures. During dinner, conversations flowed easily around her, but she was offered only cursory questions, their tones polite yet condescending. Subtle glances and stifled chuckles made her feel like an intruder in her own life. Her education, her background, even the color of her skin seemed to invite silent judgment. She could feel it in the way they exchanged knowing looks, the small, cutting remarks disguised as jokes. "Oh, you didn't grow up near here, did you?" one relative asked, as if her upbringing could define her worth. She smiled politely, holding her composure, refusing to let their small-mindedness show on her face. She noticed it in the family meetings as well, where her husband's father discussed major business strategies. She sat quietly in the corner, her opinions disregarded, her questions met with forced patience or polite nods that barely acknowledged her presence. It was clear they did not believe she belonged in that room, that she could contribute anything meaningful. Despite their dismissiveness, she observed keenly, letting each word, each subtle gesture, inform her understanding of the family and the empire they had built. She noticed patterns: the overconfidence in their investments, the casual underestimation of outsiders, the arrogance that disguised insecurity. She noted the dynamics between them, the unspoken hierarchy and the tiny cracks in their polished facade. In private, she reminded herself that patience and strategy were as powerful as wealth, and that the laughter directed at her could be turned into insight. Walking through the halls, she studied the business books casually left on side tables, the framed articles of past deals, and the awards that validated their success. Every detail she absorbed added to a growing map of understanding, a silent preparation for moments when knowledge would outweigh mockery. Even as she felt the sting of exclusion, she refused to let bitterness take hold. She knew her worth was not determined by their approval. She found strength in small victories, moments when a pointed remark slipped past unnoticed, when she remained calm despite the sharp edge in a relative's voice. These moments became quiet affirmations of resilience. Outside, in the manicured gardens, she would steal a few moments of reflection, letting the breeze remind her that patience could be a weapon more potent than confrontation. She quietly promised herself that every slight, every laugh directed at her would be carefully noted, not forgotten. The family might see only a woman trying to fit in, but she saw herself as a strategist, quietly assessing, learning, preparing. She understood that while they were content to underestimate her now, underestimation would eventually become their greatest liability. Her calm observation, her unshakable patience, and her attention to detail were seeds planted in silence, destined to grow into a force no one in that house would anticipate. And in that quiet resilience, in the midst of their mockery and doubt, she began to build the foundation of a power they could neither imagine nor control. The first signs of trouble began subtly, almost imperceptibly, with small shifts in investment reports and hesitant calls from partners overseas. But soon, the cracks in the family empire widened into undeniable fractures. Large investors were withdrawing funds, market instability rippled across their ventures, and the once unshakable confidence of her husband's family started to crumble. Panic spread through the estate like a virus. Her husband's father barked orders across the boardroom, demanding immediate solutions, while his siblings argued over minor details, each convinced that their own plan was the only way to save the empire. Meetings grew louder, tempers flared, and their arrogance prevented them from seeing the obvious. Their strategies relied too heavily on old connections and outdated assumptions. They underestimated anyone outside their tight circle, blind to insights that came from experience rather than inheritance. In the corner of the room, she remained calm, her posture composed, her mind sharply focused. She listened to every argument, absorbed every detail of the crisis, and noted every misstep without revealing her thoughts. While they panicked, she began quietly mapping the vulnerabilities that could be turned into solutions, mentally preparing the steps that might stabilize the empire. Subtle glances revealed their frustration when she asked pointed, intelligent questions. Questions that exposed gaps in their reasoning, but which they brushed off, too proud to acknowledge. She let it pass, knowing that true strategy required patience, timing, and discretion. She remembered past moments in her own career, handling crises of global scale, negotiating with investors who demanded nothing less than precision and vision. Though her husband's family had no idea, she had built networks spanning continents, contacts with decision-makers who trusted her judgment, and experience that could turn chaos into opportunity. Every detail of the empire, the strengths, the weaknesses, the egos at play, was being catalogued in her mind, forming a blueprint that no one else could see. Outside the boardroom, the tension grew tangible. Executive assistants whispered about potential mass withdrawals. Advisors scrambled for last-minute meetings, and the family's fear began to infect even loyal staff. Investors were calling relentlessly, pressing for answers that no one could confidently provide. The family's desperation became palpable, and in their frantic energy they overlooked the very person who had the clarity to solve the crisis. She observed the shifting alliances within the family, the impatience, the pride that prevented them from listening, and she recognized a pattern she had seen before. When arrogance clouds judgment, even the strongest empire can falter. The room was thick with anxiety, yet she remained an island of composure. When discussions turned to panic-driven decisions, she remained silent, letting them exhaust themselves, all the while knowing that the solution would come not from shouting or fear, but from careful calculation and strategic leverage. Each failing plan they proposed only confirmed what she already knew. The empire's stability depended not on tradition, but on adaptability, on intelligence applied with foresight. As investors' threats grew more urgent, she sensed the moment approaching when her knowledge, contacts, and experience would no longer be a secret. She could see the family teetering on the edge, their confidence eroding with each withdrawal and each failed attempt to regain control. The irony was not lost on her. The same people who had mocked her patience, dismissed her opinions, and underestimated her presence were now powerless in the face of a crisis they could not navigate alone. And through it all, she waited, calm, observant, quietly ready to transform the empire's chaos into opportunity, aware that the very skills they had ignored would soon become the only thing that could save everything they had built. The tension was unbearable, the stakes higher than ever, and the gap between their panic and her composed strategy could not have been more stark. Soon, she knew, everything would change. As the family's panic reached its peak, she remained silent, composed, and deliberate, quietly preparing the move that would shift the balance of power. While they scrambled with frantic phone calls and heated arguments, she reached out to her global network, making subtle inquiries that carried weight far beyond the family's understanding. Within hours, she had orchestrated commitments from investors who trusted her implicitly, investors who had worked with her in projects spanning continents, knowing her judgment, her precision, and her unwavering strategic insight. She did not announce her plan. She let it unfold silently, ensuring that the impact would be absolute. When the boardroom meeting was convened, the atmosphere was thick with tension, the family still desperate, their pride battered by the realization that every plan they had attempted had failed. Then she spoke. Calmly, measured, and with an authority that silenced the room, she announced that she had secured a $1 billion investment to stabilize the empire. The room went silent, disbelief etched on every face. Her husband's father, who had dismissed her throughout her time in the house, blinked rapidly, unable to process the news. How? He stammered, voice barely concealing his shock. She smiled gently, letting the weight of the revelation sink in. "They know me," she said, her voice steady. "They know my work, my vision, and they trust me to make this right." The family's siblings exchanged anxious glances, the humiliation clear as they realized that the investors were not responding to their authority, their name, or their title. They were responding to her. Investors began arriving, their presence commanding respect, and it quickly became obvious that they recognized her personally, greeting her warmly, shaking her hand with confidence and admiration. The room, once filled with the clamor of panic, now held a charged silence, broken only by the whispers of astonished relatives. She allowed the moment to linger, letting them feel the full weight of their underestimation. Her background, once hidden beneath the guise of a new bride entering a wealthy family, was revealed in full. She was a former international finance strategist, a figure respected in boardrooms across the globe, with decades of experience negotiating billion-dollar deals, crafting strategies that shaped markets and guiding empires through crises far greater than this. And in that moment, she confronted them with words that would be remembered forever. "You laughed at me for not fitting into your world. I built the world your empire depends on." The statement hung in the air, a quiet indictment of every sneer, every dismissive glance, every sarcastic remark that had been directed at her. Her husband's family could not speak. Their pride, arrogance, and misjudgment had all been laid bare in an instant. The investors, sensing her control and confidence, immediately expressed their trust in her leadership, agreeing to allow her to oversee critical decisions, manage funds, and guide the family empire through recovery. She accepted with poise, never gloating, never seeking revenge. Her brilliance and preparation spoke louder than any words could. She methodically outlined her plan, detailing strategic investments, risk mitigation, and operational improvements, all executed with the precision of someone who had mastered global finance. The family watched, stunned, as the empire they had built teetered on the edge, now steadied not by their legacy, but by her expertise. Their disbelief turned to respect, though it came too late to erase the sting of humiliation. She had not only saved the empire, she had exposed the limits of arrogance, proving that real power was not inherited but earned, and that judgment based on appearances or prejudice could be catastrophic. And as the investors nodded, shaking hands with her and expressing confidence in the future, the family realized that the woman they had mocked, dismissed, and underestimated had quietly become the most indispensable force in the room. Every sneer, every subtle insult had been noted, absorbed, and transformed into insight. Every moment of dismissal had been a lesson in patience, strategy, and the power of composure. In that single, breathtaking move, she had not only secured the financial future of the empire, but had also reshaped the family's perception forever. Justice had been served not through confrontation or revenge, but through intellect, preparation, and the undeniable force of reputation. The room, once a stage for arrogance and doubt, now bore witness to the quiet brilliance of a woman whose presence alone commanded authority, trust, and admiration. The boardroom had transformed from a chamber of chaos to a space of silent acknowledgement, where the weight of truth hung heavy in the air. Her husband's family, once brimming with arrogance and certainty, now sat humbled, their faces etched with disbelief and quiet shame. They could no longer ignore the brilliance they had dismissed, nor the patience they had underestimated. The empire, teetering on the brink of collapse just hours before, had been steadied by the woman they had scorned, and the irony was undeniable. She moved through the halls of the estate with calm authority, her presence now commanding respect rather than skepticism. Decisions that had once been ignored when suggested by her were now embraced, implemented with the confidence of a leader whose reputation preceded her. She never flaunted her victory, never gloating, but carried herself with the quiet dignity of someone who understood the value of composure, patience, and intellect. Her husband watched in awe, reflecting privately on the irony of his own assumptions. He had married a woman he thought would fit into his world, someone he believed would be content with a supportive role, someone he thought he fully understood, Yet the woman beside him had proven not only her worth, but had revealed a depth of knowledge, strategy, and vision that surpassed even his expectations. In her, he saw the embodiment of intelligence tempered with grace, strength married to humility, and patience that outlasted arrogance. The family, once eager to mock and belittle, now grappled with a mixture of embarrassment and reluctant admiration. Every pointed joke, every dismissive glance, every subtle underestimation had backfired spectacularly. They had underestimated a person not by chance, but by prejudice, and the consequences had been undeniable. Yet, even in their humiliation, there was a lesson unfolding, a reminder that true power is never dictated by wealth, family name, or inherited status, but by skill, insight, and character. The protagonist quietly consolidated her influence over the empire, guiding strategic investments, negotiating critical partnerships, and ensuring stability with precision and foresight. Her leadership was marked not by retaliation or vengeance, but by calm authority, proving that brilliance and composure could achieve far more than force or intimidation. Employees, investors, and partners alike recognized her capability, respecting her not for the title she had acquired through marriage, but for the expertise she wielded and the results she delivered. And in the stillness of her office late at night, she reflected on the lessons embedded in the events that had unfolded. She understood the quiet power of observation, the importance of patience in moments of chaos, and the inevitability that knowledge and preparation would always overcome ignorance and prejudice. Her husband, finally understanding the depth of her strength, approached her privately. "I never realized. I thought I knew everything about you," he admitted, his voice tinged with both awe and regret. She simply smiled, recognizing that understanding often comes too late, but that it was never too late to respect what had always been true. Outside the boardroom, the family slowly began to internalize the truth. Arrogance gave way to humility. Mockery dissolved into acknowledgement, and a new perspective emerged, one where respect was earned, not assumed, and where judgments based on appearances or status were revealed to be dangerously flawed. The morale of their experience was undeniable. Never underestimate someone because of their race, background, or perceived place in society. Knowledge, skill, and integrity hold far greater power than inherited wealth or a prestigious name. True respect is cultivated through character, through the actions one takes when it matters most, and through the patience and composure that allow brilliance to shine even under pressure. As the family adapted to this new reality, the empire itself began to thrive once more, guided not by ego or entitlement, but by competence, vision, and steady leadership. And in that transformation, a broader lesson resonated, one that extended far beyond the walls of the estate or the confines of a single family. Brilliance, when paired with patience and composure, could overcome prejudice. Dismissal and underestimation could be powerful tools for those willing to wait and act with intelligence, turning doubt into respect, mockery into admiration, and injustice into opportunity. The story, now a quiet triumph of intellect over arrogance, left an enduring impression that character and capability, exercised with calm authority, can reshape even the most entrenched hierarchies. In the end, the empire stood stronger, the family wiser, and the woman, once dismissed, was recognized as the force that had quietly, decisively, and brilliantly transformed everything they had once taken for granted. Her story became a testament to the power of perseverance, strategic thinking, and the unassailable truth that real strength is measured not by wealth or title, but by knowledge, composure, and the courage to act when the moment demands it.